How's it going, guys? It's Riv. I'm back with another track by track review, and this time we're doing something a little different. We are going to review two albums at the same time. Those two albums both being by the Shins. We're talking about Heartworms and The Worm's Heart, which in my mind are two albums that were meant to be compared. It's just in the nature of both albums. I think they wanted these to be compared, obviously. And so I was very surprised when I went on YouTube and found zero comparison videos on these two albums. So I figured, you know what? Let me do it. I will take that upon myself. And I know the Shins aren't that popular, so this isn't going to get a lot of views. And I don't do it for the views. If I did it for the views, I'd be severely depressed by now. But no, I do it for my own interests, and this is something that interests me. We have two albums here, and this is not something that a lot of bands do, just release a completely different version of the same album. So if you could skip ahead if you want, but I'm just going to give some quick background on both of these albums real fast. So if you don't know the Shins, they're like a pop folk rock kind of band, and Heartworms, their fifth studio album, sees them dip their toes into that more pop side of their music. And it also sees them dip their toes into more computer generated sounds, some more experimentation, which they have been kind of playing with ever since Port of Morrow, and ever since James Mercer, the head of their band, teamed up with Danger Mouse on their side project, Broken Ballz, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But once again, those sort of sounds are starting to seep into the Shins, which is what we get here. And of course, with that being said, not everyone is going to like Heartworms. It received very mixed reception, and I guess as we review both albums, you'll see which side of that reception I lean towards. And then a year later, we got The Worm's Heart, which is Heartworms, but every track is quote unquote flipped, which basically means that the lyrics remain the same, but everything else has changed. The instrumentation, the vocal delivery, and just the overall tone of the song. And also the track list is reversed, and which doesn't really change much. Well, sorry. Wow, voice crack. Alright, that didn't happen. So the way this is going to go is, well, you see my setup here. I'm going to go back and forth between each album, and we're going to talk about each song and then rate each song, going back and forth. And eventually, every song will be rated, and then we'll average up the ratings on both albums to get an overall score for both of them, and we'll see which one is the overall better album. And you see my rating system in the bottom right corner. You'll catch on. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, you'll understand it very quickly. So let's just get right into it with Name for You on Heartworms. So Name for You is a very good album opener. The Shins always know how to open an album, and they do it here. It's just a straight up pop rock song. It's very easy on the ears, and it's got a proper chorus that whisks you away on these guitars and what sounds like a flute, but it's probably computer generated, but it sounds good here. You could already tell right off the bat that they're integrating new sounds into their music, and it works here. I think here taking the more popular route, not more popular, bad grammar, the popular route, it works here for them especially. So and I also like the message on this song, talking about how women shouldn't really submit to the labels that we often give to them as a society. So good message on a very light song. I give it an 8 out of 10. And now the Worm's Heart take on Name for You takes a more retro 80s take on the song, which happens multiple times on this album. But I think it works the best here, this 80s sound. And so you have like these bouncy synths going on with like not a light guitar, but a guitar that comes up occasionally. And it does sound very good. I like it overall. And I don't really have much to say about it. It just has these cool synths that drive it. It has kind of a darker tone to it, which I do like. They took out the backing vocals on this one, which kind of disappointed me. I really liked it on the original version. And what else? It kind of, like I said, I really like the song, but I do think that this darker version, it kind of just sucks the fun out of it a little bit. I think the Heartworms version just works a little better because the tone of the song just caters more to a more lighthearted instrumental. But it's still good. I give it a 7 out of 10. So now on Heartworms, we have Painting a Hole, which goes from the nice, fun name for you into a kind of a drab song that, like I just mentioned on the Worm's Heart, it has these sort of synths in the background mixed in with the guitar. I like that integration. Well, overall, it's just like I really have nothing to say about this song. It's just bland, and the lyrics sound interesting. I want to focus on them, but I just I lose focus because I nothing really grabs me about this song. The vocal delivery gets kind of old for me, and it's a very simply structured song, I think. And I wish I could say more about it, but I really no. I give it a 4 out of 10. It's just mediocre. Alright, now the Worm's Heart version of Painting a Hole I think is a very, very minor improvement upon the original, in that the synths return on this song, and they once again contribute to a darker atmosphere, but I think unlike for Name for You, I think the darker atmosphere works on this song. Yeah, I think it certainly fits the lyrics and the melodies on this one a little better, and they also throw in a cool guitar solo, which I like. But other than that, I do share the same distaste for this version. Like I said, it's just a very slight improvement for me. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So now, back on the Heartworms, we have Cherry Hearts, which is probably the most we see of the Shins techno side on this album. And I'm not one of those people that only likes real music, only wants real instruments on their songs. If they want to integrate techno stuff into their music, fine, but it has to sound good. It has to be integrated well into their sound. And that they don't do that here. It sounds very abrupt, the technological aspects of this song, like the sample they used or whatever they used. The opening on this song, the best thing I can compare it to is like technological frog croaks. And if that doesn't sound good, you're right, it doesn't sound good. And and then the synths come in. They basically just drop their instruments a little bit. And the lyricism on this song is just so uninspired and unimaginative. And that's surprising coming from James Mercer. I'd say one of the staples of the Shins is their lyricism. So it's tough to see it drop off so much on this song. It just drops into this basic cliched love song territory that really does not need to be tread by the Shins because they're way better than that. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. I'm gonna give it that cherry red, and yeah, a 3 just for being a competent pop song. But if I want competent pop, I turn on the radio. It's not what I need from the Shins because I've seen them do way better. So the Worms Hearts take on Cherry Hearts is once again an improvement upon the original, in that it takes away the samples and the synths and replaces it with actual instruments. And like I said, I'm not one of those people that needs raw instrumentation. If they want to play around in post production, they can. But I think here, especially, that just all that stuff needed to go. And I think the guitars and the solid drum beat here really carry the song, and it gives it a much needed dose of energy. But that does not fix my main gripe with the song, which is those lyrics and that annoying chorus. So with that being unchanged, I can only award it so many extra points. So I'm going to give Cherry Hearts here a 5 out of 10. And then next on Heartworms, things pick back up with Fantasy Island, which is a song that I thoroughly enjoy. The production on this one was done very well, both lyrically and instrumentally. This is just a whimsical and dreamy song that just fits the lyrics very well. And once again, got another proper chorus that kind of just takes off, and James Mercer's vocals on this one are pretty good. And yeah, I enjoy it. 7 out of 10. And then the Worms Hearts version of Fantasy Island is also pretty good. It adds in some guitar and a more thorough and consistent drum beat and some light keyboard. And that's about it. And it just keeps that instrumental throughout the song. It doesn't really change. There's not a lot of dynamic range in this version, I don't think. And yeah, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just that I think the original kind of fits more thematically, the instrumental. So I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's still pretty good. Mildenhall on Heartworms is a very laid back, relaxed song with a sort of country twist to it with the acoustic guitar. And yeah, it's got some cool lyrics on it. It's also laid back melodically. There's not really too much going on there, but it's a decent song. But not too much to say. It doesn't really impress me all that much. It's still a 6 out of 10 though. And then the Worm's Heart version drops the whole country act and replaces it with a little more energy. It's got some raw guitar work in it, some more drums, and a wild keyboard in there. And the vocal delivery is a little more untamed from James Mercer. So, but it's essentially the same song, just with a different instrumental. But I guess that's what all of Worm's Heart is. What I'm trying to say is that in this case, it doesn't really do the song any better or any worse. So I'm just going to keep this score the same for a 6 out of 10. Alright, so Heartworms Rubber Balls with a Z for some reason is just another simple, sweet love song. It takes the more basic lyricism route this time around again. And it's almost like a better version of Cherry Hearts in that it is a basic, pop rock song. But, I don't know, something about it works for me. It's very smooth, it's got a nice bass. I think the, ba-da, 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 it gets, annoying, but it doesn't occur that often in the song. I probably should give this a 5, but I don't know, it really hits, a sweet spot with me. Especially that chorus. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. So the Worm's Heart, Rubber Balls is a stripped down version of the original. And in stripping it down, I have to imagine that they're trying to go for a more atmospheric sort of song, but it kind of just comes off as empty and a little too minimalistic at some points. Just a very light, plucky guitar and not much else. I do like the backing vocals more on this one, but that's about it. Overall, it just seems like a less inspired version of the original, so I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Half a Million is another offering of pop rock on this album, and perhaps the most energetic the album gets. And I do like that change in sound. I'm very pleased with the Shins sound. They often go for a slower, more laid back sound, but this is a nice change. And it's nothing new. We've heard the whole especially those piano chords in there. You can hear that in every pop song, but I love how it melds with the really powerful guitars on here. And I can't get enough of that chorus. It's a double chorus, actually, because about halfway through, James Mercer goes into another octave and changes melodies, and it just sounds so cool. And a lot of people don't really, a lot of people like to nitpick this song because, the lyrics are also nothing special. It's about a washed up rock star, and we've heard that done a million times before, and it's done again here. But you know what? I still think the lyrics can stand on their own, and I actually enjoy them a lot. So, it's all opinion based, and my opinion is I really dig this song. I give it an 8 out of 10. So the Worm's Heart version of the song puts a reggae twist on it, which was kind of interesting with these reggae keyboard chords. So that was pretty interesting upon first listen, but after a few more listens, I realized the song is very one note. The piano chords you get in the beginning of the song in the first few seconds are the same ones you get at the 3 minute mark, and it doesn't really change throughout that much. There's a nice little guitar solo, but other than that, it's kind of just a novelty. It was cool, and then it kind of just falls off in terms of enjoyment. But there's still that melody that I enjoy. That never left. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Dead Alive is another song of decency on Heartworms. It's got a good beat to it. It's got I really don't know what to say about this song. It's really not that bad, but like a bunch of the other songs on this thing, it really just doesn't impress me. It's got a good groove. I'm not a big fan of the chorus. It kind of drags. But I really have no beef with this song. I just don't have much to say about it. It's the lyrics are interesting. It's got a little more nuance to it, like some of the Shins older stuff. I'll say that. And yeah, I'll slap a 6 out of 10 on it, and we'll move on. So the Worm's Heart, Dead Alive, takes a swing at some piano balladry, and I'd say it works in its favor, and James Mercer makes the right adjustment so that the vocal delivery works well with the slowed up tempo. And even with the slowed up tempo, just the atmosphere created by these pianos and the violins, it all just sounds very eerie, fitting with the lyrics, of course. And then about halfway through, we get this excellent build up with these drums that come in, and then they carry us into these echoey guitars that come out in like the very end. And it makes for a very interesting development throughout the song. And I never say that the song fully takes off, but it is a good build up. I give it overall a 7 out of 10. So now we get the title track off of Heartworms, and boy, do I love this song. And perhaps it's a bit hypocritical, knowing that I just bashed Cherry Hearts for having those standard love song lyrics, and this is also sort of a standard love song, but I think it's done more organically. The instrumental is not distracting. In fact, I love the guitars on this one, and I love the Beach Boys-esque keyboard that comes in on the chorus. And speaking of the chorus, it's probably my favorite one on the album. It just kind of takes off into this sweet melody, and the melody on the chorus is only rivaled by the melodies that come in on the verses. It all just flows very well. It all sounds very sweet, like a love song should. And with all that being said, I give this song a 9 out of 10. So now we have the Heartworms on The Worm's Heart, and I kind of wish that they called it The Worm's Heart and maybe even just made it a completely different song so that the album could have its own title track. And also because Heartworms is just such a good song that pretty much anything they did, I was probably going to like less on The Worm's Heart. And that did stand true. Because once again, they take this 80s new wave route with the song. They add in like these wompy synths. And, it all sounds good. It was a nice little novelty upon first listen. But it does certainly suck that summery feel, that fun vibe that the song gave off. It's still there. The melodies are still there, of course, which does keep the song from dipping too much, but still, it does take away from the song, I feel. It adds in a few new elements with a guitar solo, and I think the backing vocals might be a little different, but other than that, it's just a slightly inferior version of the original, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So now what is the penultimate song on Heartworms, and I'd agree with most people that say that this song's a bit jarring in, I guess, relative to the rest of the album. It just doesn't really seem to fit, but if we're talking about it as an individual song, I do in fact enjoy it. I like James Mercer's vocal performance on the chorus especially. And once again, the lyrics aren't too deep, or not as deep as they have been on past albums, but it makes for a coherent narrative throughout the song. About I guess a relationship that's trying to be pushed forward, maybe not as organically as one may wish. I don't know if that's the actual message. That's just what I pull from it. But also, it's an incredibly layered song. Like instrumentally, there's just a lot going on, and it doesn't really like hit you over the head. It sounds very nice, and yeah. So for me, it's a 7 out of 10. So the So Now What on The Worm's Heart slows things down for a synth ballad of sorts, with this very heavy, wompy synth that we heard actually on the previous song. Once again, it takes things back to the 80s. For whatever reason, that is the common sound that they like to return to on The Worm's Heart. And perhaps it's just an easy thing to do. It sounds a lot less, although it's sonically pleasing, it does sound much simpler here on The Worm's Heart. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but does it take away from what was an intricate instrumental on the Heartworms version? And that's about my only complaint. It's still the same song essentially with the same melodies that I enjoyed. So it doesn't take away too much. It's like a 6 out of 10, I'd say. So now we get to the closer on Heartworms, The Fear, which is, sort of a slow jam. I understand what they were going for here. And it has a very pleasing instrumental
Kind of sounds like something out of Italy. It sounds really nice, but I really can't get over James Mercer's vocal delivery on here. It just, for me, doesn't really meld well with the instrumental. It's perhaps maybe too slow. It doesn't really have like a rhythm to it. And for that reason, I kind of just fall in and out of this song. I really want to focus on the lyrics because they do sound interesting, but like I said, it doesn't really grab my attention because there's not too much going on instrumentally. I like the instrumental. It doesn't really vary that much throughout though. So yeah, this song really just loses my interest very quickly. And that probably annoys a lot of people because I know that a lot of people like this song. And so, me not liking it, I'm sure that irks some people. I understand why a lot of people like this, but I just personally cannot get that into it. I give it a 4 out of 10. So, now we have The Worm's Heart, and The Fear is the opener on this album. And so with that, I guess they try to pump some energy into the song to make it more of an opener and less of a closer. And so with that, we get these, some classic sounding guitars, maybe something out of the 60s. I get a little Velvet Underground from this. And some piano that comes in, and a steady drum beat. And all that sounds good. I prefer the instrumental on this one, but it still does not meld well with the vocals from James Mercer. It feels like either one or the other came first, and then the other was an afterthought. That's probably not the way it actually went, but that's the feeling I get, and it does so take away from the song. It's, once again, a minor improvement. I give it a 5 out of 10. Alright, guys, so we finally made it to the end. All songs are rated on both albums, so what I'm going to do to find that final verdict is, first for Heartworms, we're going to find the average score, and basically that means I'm going to add up all 11 song ratings and divide by 11, because that's what an average is, and that gives us an overall rating of a 6.2 out of 10. And then if we do the same for The Worm's Heart, we get an overall rating of a 5.9 out of 10. And that's honestly what I would have expected from Heartworms. I was thinking a 6 out of 10 in my mind when I was doing this, and that's about what we got, because it is a good album, perhaps on the lower side of good, but it's still a good album. I just think that it takes a few dips at some points, and overall as an album, it's not that, it doesn't flow like an album should. Each song is individually half decent to good, but just as an album, it's a little all over the place, but still, like I said, on the lower side of good. And then The Worm's Heart, I was not expecting it to be this close to Heartworms. In my mind, I had a 5.5 at most out of 10, and maybe I was just a bit too generous in my song ratings, but it's still fairly accurate. I will say that The Worm's Heart did in fact improve upon Heartworm's weakest offerings, but other than that, it took a lot of what was good on Heartworms, and it just seemed like it didn't know what to do with it, and it just made it a less interesting version of its original. And like I said, a lot of these songs just kind of feel like novelties. Like, oh, what if Half a Million was a reggae song? Well, here's what it sounds like, but, it wasn't meant to be a reggae song, and for clear reasons, just tonally, it's just a bit off for me, a few of these songs. But, yeah, that's what I gotta say. So I guess you could say that Heartworms is greater than The Worm's Heart, but not really by all that much. And finally, having come to that conclusion, that concludes another album review, this time for 2 albums. So I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. If you have any ideas for, I guess answer me down in the comments. I mean, my comment sections are kind of a barren wasteland, but if you are there and you are listening, are there any other albums like this that I could do this with? I mean, not a lot of bands do this. I know Portugal the Man has Majestic Majesty and a Satanic Satanist, but those are like too similar. So yeah, if you have any ideas, comment below. If you just have an album in general you want me to review, I am very keen on the Shins. You could suggest me a Shins album, or really anything. As long as I see something down there, I'll give it a listen, and if I have strong enough opinions on it, I'll review it. So yeah.